Hello and welcome to The Lab, our new and completely improvised podcast slash talk show where we talk about AI, tech, SaaS, business, startups, productivity, and whatever else we feel like. I'm Justus. I'm a software engineer here at Lumen, working in the R&D department, and the future host of this incredible new podcast. Over here we have...
I'm Scott. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Lumen, and here to talk about AI for just generally what we do with AI in the office, and also how we use it for coding and within the product.
And I'm Max. I'm the CEO here at Lumen, and I'm excited for this debut episode of The Lab.
Questions. What inspired Lumen to do an AI transformation, and is AI transformation the new digital transformation?
That's a good question, yeah. So what inspired Lumen to do an AI transformation? I think around about the middle of last year, we realized that AI had got to the point where it could help quite dramatically with productivity, whether that happened to be development, coding, or just general productivity in terms of emails, checking emails and replying to emails. Before that, I think AI was like error prone, and it was kind of not necessarily a net positive, but by the middle of last year, it kind of appeared that it was going to be a net positive. And then we realized that we couldn't actually use AI to its full potential at Lumen because of the tools we were using. So we didn't have like tools in place that would allow us to kind of use AI to its full potential. So we had to go through kind of our software stack and our processes and rip out anything that wasn't working well with AI, and then kind of give our employees access to stuff that allowed them to use AI.
Yeah, it's a great point on the tooling, because I think thinking back about it, using AI in Lumen for a while was a case of like, this thing isn't working, that means AI isn't working, that means AI is bad and we can't use it. But actually our problem ended up being we didn't have a good setup for using AI. We couldn't get the stuff we needed into context so that the AI could use it and make good decisions. And it's kind of like a counterintuitive thing where it wasn't quite that AI was bad or not ready for the task yet. It was more that our setup was more designed for like a pre-AI everything really. But fixing that really got it on track. Aside from the technical challenges, which get talked about heaps and heaps and heaps, what other challenges were there in this transformation?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting first challenges was just getting like our team to recognize that AI wasn't just Claude Code or Gemini. Like AI is a whole suite of tools, right? And so whether it's automated code review, whether it is code creation with the likes of Claude Code or Cursor, whether it's productivity through Gemini, AI is touching a whole lot of different surfaces. And so we needed to get people to sort of realize that there would be transformation right across the whole software stack. We had to move our code repositories. We had to kind of move a lot around just to enable that. Once we got through that kind of initial hurdle, I think getting everything set up and working took a little bit of time. There was quite a lot of change in the software we were using, and we had to throw out some processes that weren't necessarily like fitting for AI. And so, for example, like around like ticket management and scheduling work, we had a lot of processes that were built in the pre-AI era, and they kind of were really built for a time when you had to type every word in a ticket manually. But once we're in the AI era, we can connect our tools like Claude into the ticket management systems, and we can generate tickets much faster and resolve them. So getting through those challenges, I think, was important.
Yeah, the wider transformation was fairly interesting, and I remember a lot of the talk has been on like software development and how people can use AI to really get software development going at a completely different speed. I had a conversation with one of our product owners, Tia Ma. I don't know, I've got no idea if she's going to be listening to the pod, but I'll hear about it if she is. And what happened is the team she was working with, her processes changed a lot as a product owner. So the whole like requirements, speaking experiments, prioritizing experiments, the whole thing got very AI first very quickly. And it was interesting because the day-to-day becomes hard. Like when you're changing something, a process, it's just hard because you got to learn how to use AI. How do you make sure it's not making stuff up, not hallucinating, it's not going off the rails, it's not going to do something destructive. So every day is quite hard because it's new and you're learning and like getting there. But then there came a point like a month after the transformation where we were talking about it, and then at that point it was like if you look back a month to how much things had changed and improved, it was quite a lot. But in the day-to-day, it's hard. It's a transformation. It's like hard. It's a bit painful. You're learning, but then you get like a month or so in and look back and it's like, oh man, like the progress. Like I think the quote was like, I can't believe we used to write these tickets by hand. And in the space of a month, that's crazy, right? But the day-to-day. How have you found AI, Eustace, as coming into Lumen pretty recently, straight out of uni, mid-uni maybe? How have you found the impact of AI on software development, and has it been like in the workforce, has it been kind of the same as you kind of expected when you were like on the outside looking in?
Yeah, so probably a bit of context to this. I was just in uni like last year this time, and then a couple months, was it like September or something, like September, October, I dropped out of my first year and started working here at Lumen. And so before then, I'd done a little bit. I was starting to pick up some of the AI stuff, and I was I was pretty fortunate in that I was doing some like contracting, and the contracting I was doing was pretty general. So it was like, well, not pretty general. It was pretty unsupervised and open for me to do whatever. So I had a lot of space to learn my own things and learn on my own and find my own way, which was really cool. And so I kind of naturally fell into the whole AI like vibe coding thing as it was emerging. So like this would have been early 2024. There's some like YouTubers I was watching, obviously, that I still watch, that I quite enjoy. They were like covering this. I was very heavy on like the tech YouTube, or like the programming and dev YouTube side. And as all this kind of took off and started getting more attention, as they like leaned more into this, obviously like I kind of fell along with that, because that's what I was consuming and watching, and that's what they were talking about. But yeah, it was like it was a big change, like coming into Lumen. Like my mindset before had always been somewhat pessimistic. Like for a long time, I was kind of anti-AI, and I remember like still mid 2024, I was like, when someone was asking me, it would always be, oh yeah, like it's useful, but there's so much that it can't do, and I don't think it'll actually ever take over software development or like for the next few years. And that was really like coming into Lumen was like the shift of the mindset of AI is like, yeah, it's like a cool experiment, and it's like a cool toy, and Cursor is cool, and it like helps and can do stuff, to like AI is good enough. It's just like how you use it, the tools you use it with, that define on if you get the actual outputs that you're looking for. And so that's been like really cool.
Yeah, I think the AI part, the like pessimistic to optimistic change, it's something I experienced as well. So would have been all of 2024 was like, like marketing hype and developer tooling. It's anytime something new comes along, there's a lot of marketing hype because there's often companies behind it and what have you. And then for me, there was this moment it was Google Cloud Sydney. I think it was Sydney, right? It was in Australia.
Sydney. Yeah, the Google Cloud Summit, I think it was.
Yeah, the Cloud Summit. And I was at the Google booth, and we got a demo, and I can't remember his name, but which is unfortunate because it was a real transformative moment for my like personal AI journey. But what he did was I was like talking to him, and he's like, oh, we've got this demo with PDFs. And it's like, okay, cool. And he whipped this PDF into Gemini and scraped out a whole heap of structured data, which pre-AI is like very hard. Like you could do it with keyword matching, maybe some like fuzzy matching, maybe you could train a neural net or something, but it's like quite hard and a bit like, and he just ran it straight into Gemini, ripped all the data out, and then was like, oh, here's some use cases, you can do blah, blah, blah. And for me, that was when it was like, oh man, this stuff like actually works now. And from there, like all of 2025, I was pretty all in a pretty big way. And for me, that was one turning point that changed my mind. Max, did you have a similar or a different like what was kind of your AI journey? Did you go from like skeptical to all in, or it was always kind of like watching it and waiting it until it was good, or something else?
Yeah, I think the big turning point for me was seeing like coding agents work in the background over long tasks. So sort of simple text generation has been around for like 5 or 10 years, where you can prompt something and you get some text back. So I wasn't super surprised by that. But that also, like, it does help with drafting emails and stuff like that, but I didn't really see it changing the world per se. But I think the piece where I realized that this stuff was really powerful was when I watched some of the coding models kind of work in the background for like 2 to 3 hours and make like change after change to a code base, and then come back with like a finished product. And that's still not how we do a lot of development at Lumen. Like, we do a lot more development in Lumen where people are manually driving the AI around. But being able to see that the AI could solve take a really challenging problem and work on that for like a couple hours and come back with a solution, I think was when I realized, like, wow, this is actually going to change the world.
Yeah, the long time horizon is pretty amazing, because if you think about how many decisions a model can make in 2 hours, and it has to get them all kind of right to stay kind of on track. Think about how many ways you can just get distracted doing something. It's pretty incredible. Yeah, something I'm pretty curious about, Eustace, is you had a brief but recent university career, and like coding is like software development's changing, technology's changing, and the best person to get advice from is often someone who's like 6 months ahead, or like 1 or 2 steps ahead. Do you have any advice for someone who's currently maybe just coming to the end of university or looking to get into software development, whether or not they've got a big background with AI or not?
Yeah, I've been like asked this question a lot recently through some of the events I've been running, and just like interacting, especially with uni students that are like technical and building stuff, especially through our like hackathons that we've run. And the main one I usually say is build stuff, because it's so easy now, and it's like it's really fun, but it also, like, this is something that like you've taught me specifically, is like, and like everyone else that I've talked to, especially people who are high up, like C-suite in bigger tech companies, the main thing that I hear from them is they want people that they can see like doing cool stuff, right? Like if they see someone that's like built this entire thing, like an entire project, entire product, and just kind of like goes with it, that's like way more impressive than any CV or probably even any like degree. Because if you can just build something like start to end, get it deployed, and then like in your interview or something, just show like, oh, by the way, I did this, and you can talk about how you did it. I think that's really powerful. And then kind of adjacent to that, or like what else was I asked recently? It was like kind of adjacent to that, like on the like hiring side and getting a job now. Like now that it's like different, and like it's kind of unclear what the requirements are for job interviews, because it's often very unclear of what a company wants. Are they going to run you through a full technical interview? Do they just want someone who can like prompt Claude? Like it's like there's a massive spectrum now, depending on where the companies are, and like they're like AI first, SF, like AI startups that are doing AI everything. That will still run you through an hour and a half of like Python and SQL just to get in. And I've said that, well, like my recent answer has been, like, you'll know if someone, like, you can tell if someone's interesting because they'll tell you, right? So if you just like build cool stuff and tell people about it, I don't think that can go like wrong necessarily. I think that's a pretty good way to go in general. And yeah, just build stuff.
Yeah, I agree. The projects are great because even if you just take web development, maybe there's like 100 things you need to. 100? It's not an exact number, but there is quite a few different things you need to figure out or be able to get working to get something full stack in production with no logins. It's secure. You got payments, blah blah blah. Much easier to do it after the first time. For me, like on the hiring, the projects are great because you can ask someone some questions, you can dive a bit deeper. It shows quite a bit of initiative and also like agency, like someone's like gone out and figured out how to do some stuff. If they're now working with you, like they're probably going to be able to go out and figure out how to use the AI tools as they keep evolving because they're changing fast. And yeah, I've like at the moment, I like to do the interviews as like, tell me about some projects, and you have a conversation about that. I used to run the programming questions a bit, but then it's hard to control for, is someone good at leak code, like coding questions, or are they good at code and solving problems? Like it's very hard to figure that one out. Or conversely, like sometimes those questions are quite hard if you've never done them before. So then it's like you come into an interview and you're a bit nervous, and then you bomb the questions, but someone's actually a very good developer, and it's like, oh man, it's so hard. Max, I'd love to hear your thoughts on hiring at the moment, especially, well, technical and non-technical things, and what you kind of look for, or how you feel about that whole area at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I'm probably like, if we're talking about specifically software development, I'm probably looking for three things. So one is like what Eustace said, examples of projects. I think if people have gone out there and built things before, that means that they're going to be fantastic builders within Lumen as well. So exactly what Eustace said. The second one is probably still a strong understanding of fundamentals. So things like database decisions, how you would make certain security choices, how you would make certain architecture choices. Because I find that's still very important in the vibe coding or the AI agentic engineering space. But at least based on what I've observed, like often AI agents will make questionable choices around their like architecture or their engineering. And a lot of the time that's just because they don't necessarily have the context on what you're trying to build, right? So it's very, very different building a marketing page for a small business versus building, if you're going to build a large piece of software for an enterprise or a government, and the decisions are going to be slightly different. So I think it's really key for someone to have an understanding of the basic fundamental principles. And then third would just be the ability to drive a AI agent around while developing. So is someone actually familiar with the different tools like Cursor, like Claude Code, or Anti-Gravity? And do they know how to use it? Because it is a skill. The tools, they're pretty powerful. Like you can get a long way just when you start off, but you can also get a lot better at them and a lot more effective if you kind of know how to use them. So yeah, that would be the three things I look for, Scott.
Yeah, it's a great point about the fundamentals and the decisions in a big code base versus a marketing website, because there is, if you're working on a production code base, the decision you make today, you kind of have to live with for a long time. And depending on what part of the code base you're in, you might reevaluate how you make that decision. Some areas it's a bit more like, yeah, that's kind of reversible. And some areas it's like, man, we didn't put this column in the database, and now like it's a lot of pain, and we can kind of change it, but it's high risk. But yeah, the context on that. And on a related note, we've all seen a lot of marketing and hype with AI, and you see a lot online of like, man, here's my 50 agent system, and it's like doing blah, blah, blah. Eustace, I'd love to hear about like what you see in terms of kind of expectations versus reality, or if you're looking at like, you see the marketing material and like the stuff on social media versus like, a lot of people see it, but they're not actually doing a lot of stuff with AI. So, very easy to think, oh man, I'm so behind because I'm not running 50 agents in parallel 24/7. I'd love to hear your take on like expectations versus reality, and like what you see working day to day versus what you see like on social media.
Yeah, it's like a big spectrum, right? Because on the one hand, you have developers and content creators specifically at like kind of each point along the spectrum, right? You have the ones that are like super technical, are like constantly on the like bleeding edge, that are now like vibe coding like crazy, and they're building these like massive open source projects, and they're like doing this, and they're like talking here and talking there, and like looking at them, you can feel very behind. And then you can go the complete other way and watch someone like explaining how to set up like an OpenClaw or something just on like a self-hosted provider, like hosting or something. So it's like a big spectrum. But I think for the most part, for like engineers, especially, like if you're an engineer or like especially a student that is like looking to get a job or like feels behind, it's like a bit of the imposter syndrome, like, oh my, these guys are so much ahead of me. A lot of the reality isn't reflected online, and it's like there's a lot of people that are trying to sell you stuff and trying to push their own projects, and like depending on where you go, right? Like there's always like people are out to make money one way or another, and whether that's through like making content or through selling something that they advertise through content that you then consume. So it's difficult. But for the main part, I think it's like if the people that are actually working like in these like big tech roles and like that are like engineers at like bigger tech companies or doing a lot of engineering as their actual work aren't making content because they're busy doing actual work, right? So you're never going to get the thing is the same like day trading courses or something. Like if they were actually making money with this, they would be spending their time making money rather than making content on this. So there's like good ones out there, and there's a divide, right? There's a divide. There's like and there's a lot of opinions and there's a lot of hype, right? And you don't know how much of that is actually driven by reality, how much of that is just like there's like every 2 weeks now, or like every month there's something new. It's like Ralph Loop skills, it just like keeps going on and on and on. And a lot of the things like at the time are always like super overblown, and then kind of like settle in as like, yeah, it's useful, but it's not like every month it feels like this is how software engineering is going to be. Everything's going to be a skill. Your entire like company is going to be replaced by markdown files. And then like 2 months later, it's like, well, yeah, everyone uses skills now, but it's like it's much more reasonable than it was before. It's not like, all right, you have 5 open claws and they all have like you have a marketing skill and a director skill and a CEO skill and a thing skill, and you use that to vibe code your little like side projects.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one because day to day I use AI a lot for like, well, I mostly do management stuff now, so it's like my to-do list and like looking at feedback from like my 360 and then looking at like how am I improving on it. I'm not like running like a 12-agent workflow to automate every single thing. And it's always been a tricky one with social media, right? There's always it's a great way to get imposter syndrome is looking at social media and comparing yourself to what you see on the feed. And it's like, it used to be, I'm training more, so I get fitness content now, and you see it, and it's like, man, do these people look like this day in, day out? Probably not. And now with like AI, it's like, is everyone running 50 agents concurrently to do their job? And it's like, probably not. But then I still get, even talking to friends, they're like worried, like, oh man, am I behind because I'm not doing the stuff? And it's like, no. So yeah, it's a real tricky one. It's a kind of always been a challenge with social media, but it's also like coming to the fore now. Max, I'd love to hear your take on something similar, just like what people see externally on AI, what it looks like day to day, or even if it is like the marketing stuff or the social media or just like people's general, perception.
Yeah. The one I love to look at for that to get a real gauge on it is, again, this is in the software engineering space, but just reading the engineering blogs from the likes of Stripe, Airwallex, Google, Anthropic themselves to learn about like what are these big companies internally themselves and like, how are they running things. Because to Eustace's point before, like I think the most valuable information comes from the people that are actually doing it. Like they're trying to figure some of this stuff out. And when they write blogs or posts about that and how they're doing it, I find that super valuable. In earlier days of Lumen, you look to the Uber engineering blogs and the Stripe engineering blogs quite a lot because they were building like large-scale distributed systems. So it was always interesting to see what they're doing. And I think now good practice for me is just like pick a handful of companies that I think are really leading in the space in terms of engineering and figure out like what they're doing and how they're doing stuff and how they're using AI. A really interesting one for that was probably about a year ago when AI was working for some companies and not others. Stripe released a blog which talked about how they created like an end-to-end kind of, I think it was mostly for updating packages, but it would look at their code base and it would run through and it would use AI to kind of update the packages, then run all the tests and then get it ready for deployment. There's like quite a long, nice blog from Stripe about how they did that. And we kind of used that to inspire our own AI transformation and took some of the learnings from that into what we were doing. So I think that's a really good way just to sort of anchor what you see on social media versus like what companies are actually doing. And then you can find like commonalities and go from there.
Yeah, that was the Stripe Minions blog post, right?
Stripe Minions blog, which I think was an awesome blog post. Yeah.
Was that a year ago already? That's like it doesn't seem like a year ago. Like the timelines are moving so fast. When I think back, like or just over a year ago, we didn't even have agents that were actually they were just like the sidebar, or like the cursor, like inline, like Command K stuff. It was
yeah.
like, oh no. But another thing probably to add to the social media and stuff, like on the other side, like there's obviously all of what we've been saying about imposter syndrome and about people, like things being blown out of proportion. Something I have noticed, which is like kind of nice about all of this, is that taking in all of the information isn't bad. It's one of those things where, like, I don't know what you call it, misinformation or disinformation, or like, you know, it's like something like, for a lot of this stuff, you can't really get bad information. Like you can get like, as long as it's like grounded in technical things. Like there's a lot of people making a lot of content about how they use AI and things they do, and some things works for some people and doesn't for others. And the best thing to do is just like look at it all and try it all. Like that's how I've been building my workflow and stuff, is I always just like try to consume as much information and just as much content as I can, like all day, and then pick the things that I'm like, oh, that seems cool, that's cool, and then just try it out in like either my own time or like at work where it makes sense. And then just like some things work, some things don't. Some things are just like a hype cycle. Like I still don't really use or get like Ralph loops, but some people swear by them, right? I think there's that as well, where you can just by trying everything, like although things are blown way out of proportion sometimes, and there's a lot of people saying a lot of stuff. If you just try it all, like there's no real wrong answer. If you just like what works for you, and there isn't really like anything wrong about that either way. And also, there's a big difference between people working at companies and people like making content for a living in the way they like engineer, right? Because using AI to develop stuff that's like actually going into production and stuff is a very different workflow than anyone that's like working on an open source project, like a side project or something, where it doesn't obviously there's some that are more important, less important, but for the most part, if you just have like a side project or like an open source project that's like OpenClaw or something, if there's a bad PR in there, right? If there's some like issue, it's not a massive issue, right? Like there's just like so much code going through that thing all the time, where it doesn't really matter, and it's fine. Like you can just try stuff out and you can go crazy, and you don't really need to review anything. But then when you're actually doing it for a job, you need to like somehow work the speed around the constraints that you have that like come with just like actually having a product that people use and building for, you know, different like SOC 2 or other requirements and things.
Yeah, the like kind of risks change quite a bit, right? Like what's at stake? Like you get a production system, customer data, and downtime's an issue as well, and then that's quite different to building something. And I like what you said about what works for some people doesn't work for others, and of course like the context specific stuff. And I think it relates nicely to what Max was saying about like finding the 3 or 4 or 5 companies that are kind of, well, in our case, like a little bit ahead of where Lumen is, but we're building a distributed system as well. And it's like, well, how are they using AI? Can we learn from them? Which is very cool. On the learning from the information, I take a slightly different approach, but it also leads to different blind spots where I quite like to go from the fundamentals and like how can I use AI to just heavily leverage the fundamentals, which is just one way. It does mean that I have never set up like an OpenClaw and never tried a Ralph loop yet. So both have, certainly my approach has some blind spots where I haven't written loops or like set up OpenClaw and stuff like that.
You got to start making some loops.
I got to start making some loops.
Start making loops. It's all loops now. Like everything's loops.
Oh, it's all loops. Yeah. What should my first loop be?
Like, I mean, you're kind of already using them because it's you have like automations set up. That's what loops. Like that was I think that's what that was with like the Ralph loops, was like people are like, oh my God, you can just like get them like continuing to do stuff without you actively prompting it. And that's now like come down to like automations, heartbeats, and like those kind of things that actually make more sense. Do those.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we already have some, but like sub agents and like just spawning like different threads and stuff is so useful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like one skill, like one workflow that then goes and like spawns 50 workers that all just like go and do something. It's so nice.
All right. Sounds like I gotta get that cranking. I'm pretty keen to hear from both of you. What's the first, if you're talking to someone, whether they're a developer or they're not a developer, and they want to try using AI, what's like the very first step that they could take right now that would be, even if it's not exciting, it's not super sexy or whatever, it's like the very first thing they can do to like start that journey and sort of, get moving?
I'll let you take this one first, Max.
Yeah, definitely. Gemini.google.com. Go and try it. I think persistence is important. So I think all of the coding models are pretty good. I got started just by building some static websites, just some like marketing pages, and I tried the likes of Claude Code for that or Cursor, and just kind of got going. But I think what is really important is that you kind of get going, but then you continue for a little while and really be persistent, because I think some of the cracks don't start to show in terms of the development until you've done like a bit of work on the project, or you've really tried to like add more and more features, and then you start to learn like what doesn't work as well. So I think setting that time aside to both kind of get started with the coding tools, but then also to take a project from sort of a simple concept to something a bit bigger, and then you'll start to see where AI works really well, and then like where the cracks start to form as well.
Yeah, I like that. The persistence, I think, is very, very, very important. I think I've seen it with both myself and a number of people at Lumen. Like learning something, trying something, it's hard, and like it's not straight up just not going to work a lot of the time. But there is a skill, right? Like there's a skill to getting these agents to do what you want and like getting them to do it effectively. And I learned by doing and slamming my head against the wall like every day for like a year. But
Yep.
yeah, it's a real persistence game. How about you, Eustace?
Oh, this is I get real excited about this because I'm like fully in the AI psychosis like valley. I'm all the way in there. So like I think everyone can gain something from just using AI, and I've like personally been like trying to get like family and friends and stuff more involved. Just like try it. Just send a message. Just like ask something. I think that's the first step. Just ask. Like go. That's how these things work, right? It's a chatbot in the end. No matter like the crazy framework that it's plugged into, it's just like it's a chatbot. You just go in and you say anything and you like just get started, because then it's really easy to keep going. So just like ask something. There's like everyone has something in their life that they can like use it to gain something out of it. I think that's the best way to like actually understand these things better, because like you need to find something that these like systems can actually help you with, like something that an LLM can help you with, whether that's planning something, researching something, or like building something. You just start. You just need to find something that you're like, all right, I'm going to do this with AI now. And then you just keep trying to do it until it works, because like I don't believe there isn't really anything that I can think of off the top of my head that I couldn't do with AI. And that's something that I've been like trying to do as well, just do everything with AI, like everything in my life. I'm trying to aggressively like automate and find, because there's like, I have a lot going on, and I'm just trying, like just throwing stuff, seeing what sticks. And that's like the best way, I think, to do it. It's just like go in and just like aggressively go in super optimistic and just try do everything, and then just see what actually ends up sticking in the end. Because like most of the stuff doesn't, but the stuff that does is like super helpful.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I agree. It's like you kind of just have to try, right? And for me as well, it was just like, oh, well, I'll try to do everything. I think I had about 3 or 6 months where one of my what do you call it? Like a high priority task was I was trying to like automate my job, but it was like, how much of my job can I run into an AI agent with some skills and some like context and try to get it doing stuff? Some things it's incredible at, and some things, yeah, I still have to do some things that I would like an AI agent to do, but I haven't got there yet. But yeah, I agree. Like just finding something and just going for it. I think the first thing I did before coding was just I had something that was a Google search, and I put it into probably Gemini or something instead. Seems kind of like, oh, well, you're just going to ask the chatbot instead of Googling it. But the nice thing about the chatbot is you can ask follow-ups and like challenge it on things. And that's probably my favorite thing about, aside from like assisting with work, is just if I want to learn about something or figure something out, or my preference is just to like ask questions and go down the like 5 whys rabbit hole. And I think chatbots are great for that. Sometimes search results are a little more challenging because if you just get a blog post, but if you can interactively start asking like very specific things and like that's just how I like to learn.
Yeah, about like searching in Gemini. Sounds like you got in pretty late, actually. You're like back in the gotta remember back the days when it was just Bard.
That's right. It was probably
Bard.
Bard.
Or was it like Perplexity or something? Because the first thing I ever did with a chatbot was code. Like I heard something about ChatGPT and just like tried it. I was like at school because I was still in high school then, like GPT-3 released. I was still in high school and I was like, I wouldn't spend most of I do like math and some physics, and then most of my classes and like study classes, I was just doing programming problems, like learn like Java and TypeScript and stuff. And so I was just doing programming problems, and whenever I get stuck, I'd have to ask someone. There was like one other kid at the school that like knew how to code, who was like much better. So I would like go and find him and ask him about this stuff. But that was like the first thing, was just like immediately just like slap stuff into him and be like, all right, I need to write a function that does this. How do I do this in TypeScript and stuff? It's like the first thing. GPT-3 days in the UI, split view, got the code like VS Code open on one end, ChatGPT.
Oh man, it's not even like Copilot, like sitting in the IDE.
This is like gives you the code snippet, and you're like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm trying to how do I like declare an array in Java? It was great for that. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm going to be careful what I say here because I don't want to have a rounding endorsement of ChatGPT during your English class, but get in a bit of trouble out there. I've just got one more question from me, which is for both of you. What's your favorite and least favorite thing about AI?
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, I think I'll take that one to start. My favorite thing is actually the emerging kind of task-specific AI, so not the general AI. And so as an example, here at Lumen, we do a lot of our coding with different AI coding models, which we've talked a lot about today. But then things like customer support will run with an AI agent and a piece of SaaS software that's particularly built for that. We use Intercom and Fin that was recently acquired by Salesforce. And that is fantastic because it actually handles a whole lot of things that like a general AI program won't handle. So it handles the ability for human agents to jump in the middle of an AI conversation and help out. It handles all of the routing different questions to different agents. It handles things like escalations if a specific issue needs to be escalated. And so the fact that someone is out there building like a platform that's specific to a certain task, I think is really interesting. The other one I use a lot when I'm doing my own project management, my own task management, is Wyatt, which we built here internally. And I use that pretty much exclusively just to manage like what I need to do next. And I really like the fact it's got a voice mode in it, so I can just chat to it and kind of add more things to the task list like while I'm out and about. And I'm quite excited about the kind of future of these types of models because I think there's a huge potential for sort of technology and SaaS to just grow into that space where you have an AI agent that's managing, say, real estate, or you have an AI agent that's managing, like, say, my finances and just making sure I'm not like spending too much money on junk food or whatever else. But it's like kind of cool that you start to see these sort of platforms emerging. So that's what I'm most excited about and like the most. And what I don't like about AI, and I think this is getting better, but its ability to kind of tell me stuff that's just wrong and like not take responsibility for it. So I'll ask it like a question, and if it doesn't have the right context, it won't tell me like, oh, sorry, I can't do a good job of that. I don't have the right context. It'll just like straight up like hallucinate something or like tell me something based on something that's searched on the internet. And so I think that's like the biggest barrier in my mind to being able to adopt AI tools is like getting over this hurdle where like, how do we make sure that stuff that AI tells me is actually grounded in fact, grounded in context, and it's not just like kind of making shit up when it doesn't know, like it doesn't know what to do. So
Yeah, I love that one on vertical AI like Fin and the other platforms that are getting built for more task-specific things. Something that I think is fantastic about it is a good piece of vertical software will help you. It'll make it really easy to do the right thing, like kind of by the default through the UX or like how it behaves. It kind of funnels you into like good decisions and like doing the right thing, which is really hard with if you just, because like Fin, I think it's based on Claude at the moment under the hood, but if you just fire up Claude, you've still got to keep guiding that thing into what you want it to do. And sometimes it can be a bit of a fight, like, but with say like Fin and some other vertical software, it's like very nice, and it's just kind of funnels you by default into the right kind of thing. And even if you're having a bad day and you're a bit tired, it's like you get funneled into the right thing. And yeah, I agree on that. The like least favorite part, it's hard, right? It hallucinates and there's no like consequence or accountability in there. AI makes stuff up, and then someone was like, yeah, but like your colleague can also make things up just like AI. And it's like, well, people don't tend to do that because, like people with this like consequences or accountability or integrity, and like your colleague isn't there for 10 minutes during your coding session and then gone and started with a new, like, whereas a coding agent or a LLM, you open a new chat, you type to it for 10 minutes, and then maybe then you start a different chat. So your agent's only alive for like 10 minutes. It's not there for long term, like maybe don't make things up next time.
Yeah, I think that was actually a conversation we were having, and that was not my brightest moment. Yeah, it was interesting because I hadn't really. That was like the first time I'd actually like thought about it in that way, because like obviously it's ephemeral, right? It doesn't have any repercussions, but like it was just like I hadn't heard anyone say it before like that, which was like really good. Yeah, just the like,
Yeah, that's a funny thing to think about, right?
It's like So it's one of those like take a step back. It's like, yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, there's like nothing you can do about it, right? Like the only thing you can hope is that models get smarter and more aligned, right? The benchmarks and things like, oh, it doesn't Opus 4.8 or like Fable will only do this X amount of the time. And it's like, great. So 10% of the time it still like makes stuff up and tells me I'm right even though I'm wrong, and the whole like sycophancy, even though I think they've gotten better at that. It's like.
Yeah, I think something interesting for that is like there's, you ask it a general question, especially in the early coding days, you ask it a general question, it might make something up, you ask it to search the web and it gets grounded and then it's a bit better. And I think something that's like very interesting as a field, and I guess it's like Lumen, like what we're like obviously interested in as well, is if you have a system of record for stuff and you can ground it in the actual information, it's pretty powerful because you're not like making stuff up about like the state of the business or business data or information. You're actually getting it into the system, grounding it. Very helpful. They're incredibly powerful at summarizing large pieces of information, retrieving it as well. So that's problem. Also, like this, like I think we're very close to some very, very good solutions, which is like very exciting.
Yeah, it's like as AI gets smarter, right? It gets less and less problematic, but it's because like it hits this right part in like human psychology. But you get it to answer something, especially when the model is like, where I guess like dumber or like less good, whatever you want to say. Like especially back in last year, 2023, you'd ask it something and it would say something like that you were like well versed in, you were an expert in something, and it would say something bad, right? It would say something that's not true or like not correct or like not as good as like you could have done. But then you go and ask it about other stuff, then things you aren't an expert in, all of a sudden take its word for it. I forget what that effect is called, but it's like a real thing, right? So people will like be, oh yeah, but it's not good at this thing, but at everything else is great. And that's like it gets less as AI gets better, right? But it's like interesting because it's like I don't think people are used to the fact that there's like this thing that has like broad intelligence, right? Because like whether like we can argue whether it's like debatable whether frontier models now are like smarter than humans or no more than like all of humanity like combined, I guess. But it's certainly smarter than any like one person out there, right? When it just comes to like the amount of stuff it knows and the amount of stuff it can do, right? Like just because GPT 5.5 or Claude or Fable or anything can just even just like write all the programming languages like pretty well, right? There's probably no human that can write every single programming language to like a good degree, some better, some worse, and then also is really good at biology, or like to a level like it passes all these exams and things. That's one of those things, right? And that's where the hallucinations get dangerous because you're getting like, and especially as the model gets smarter, I'd say the hallucinations get more dangerous, even though they're like fewer and further between, because as they get smarter, we give them more like responsibility and more things that they can do. And so like when it does something like acting on bad data, it's like not great. I think there was somewhere, I saw some like article of like some company where they had it doing like compiling their like analytics, and then they realized for like 3 months it was just making up analytics. So it's like there's a lot of stuff. So like even though now models can probably do that, right? But like what happens if we give them something else to do? And it's like now it's the hallucinations get worse.
Yeah, I think there's like a whole episode to have on AI and accountability. Yeah, I like what you're saying about you get it to do something you're proficient at, and you can push back and guide it around. But if it's something you're not proficient at, you kind of just have to take its word.
Yeah.
I think there's like maybe for a while there, everyone was a bit worried. Like, oh man, AI is going to make everyone amazing at. It's going to like raise the bar. But for my usage, I find that it's made me better at things I was already good at, because it gets a bit off task. I can like guide it back on track. If it says something wrong, I know that it's wrong, and I can like steer it in the right direction. So maybe out of 10 prompts or something, if it's one was wrong, then that's fine, because I can push it in the right direction, and we're going, and it's like more productive, versus like something I'm not good at. I don't know when it's wrong. Like I kind of just have to sit there and be like, okay, sure, like whatever. But then if it only takes like 5 or 10 prompts before it's wrong about something and goes down that direction, like it's done. Like the whole thing's kind of done, and I've still got no idea. So yeah, I think that whole thing's like very interesting, and like how do you, if you're kind of doing the right thing or not, and like
Yeah, and it's like an interesting problem, right? As a company as well, right? If you like have more stuff being done by AI, it's trade-offs, right? It's like always risk reward and stuff, which is very interesting.
Yeah, it's also an interesting one for like we talked about like the long horizon things before, and they're like very impressive with that. And then there's kind of like this analogy to like the self-driving cars, where we got like 98% of the way there a while ago when deep learning came through, maybe 95 or whatever. But to have self-driving cars driving everyone around, you kind of need like 99.999. There's a lot of nines, and they have to run for a very long time without making mistakes at scale, because there's going to be thousands and thousands of them. And that's very interesting to think about, like, how did we get to so close to we had self-driving cars like a long time ago. Why aren't they on the roads doing like all of this stuff? And it's like, well, the difference between 98, 99% and then the like 10 nines of reliability that you need to actually run these things fully autonomously is huge. And it's kind of interesting to think about, because we've got LLMs, and like you're saying, use this with the example where a company had it doing something and it just turned out that it was making up one of the steps. And it's kind of like maybe it had made 100 decisions, and then the 101st was to make up the analytics, and now it's like completely like unacceptable. I think that's like a very interesting thing, where it was like, how much more development do they need before they can be trusted with stuff that's like quite critical over like quite a long horizon, without like a human sort of checking it and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys got any thoughts. I kind of went on a tangent there, but
Yeah, I'm keen to hear more about. I think the context thing is really interesting, Scott. Around, I believe that AI can only be as smart as the context it's got, right? So when we were talking before about it being very, very good at biology, it's obviously learned a lot of that context from the textbooks it was trained on. But I think there's a lot of other spaces where the models don't necessarily have the context. Like if I was to ask, let's pick Gemini, for example. If I was to ask Gemini what the current temperature in this room is, it wouldn't be able to give me a factually correct answer, right? Because it doesn't actually have a meaningful way to figure out what it is with the current technology. It might be able to estimate what the weather is in Christchurch and give me an estimate, but it won't give me the temperature in this room. So I'm keen to hear your thoughts, Scott, on like model capability versus context, and how you think that might be solved in the future. As the models get more intelligent, can they actually be more helpful without like feeding the new context into them? Or how are we going to kind of get over that hurdle?
Yeah, I think that one's an interesting one, and something that I really liked. Maybe it seemed like kind of a not that exciting update, and maybe it came out in Bard, but was when Bard or Gemini started citing its sources.
Yep.
And I think for the first part of like, does it know what it's like is it just completely making up the temperature in this room, or does it have something to go on? And for that part of it, it's like very cool that we saw a while ago Google managing to get it citing its sources, and whether it's like I'm sure Gemini is very good at like it's true to what was said on the webpage. So that side I think is very interesting, and I almost think that's possibly more important than capability right now because
Yep.
the models have a lot of intelligence, but making sure their output is grounded in fact, and I think is maybe the bigger challenge consistently, as opposed to like their reasoning ability.
Yes, yeah.
My current thoughts on that bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think even going back to that data analytics example where the company was using incorrect data or the model was hallucinating data for like a couple of months, if it had been doing that same sort of citation process and sort of citing where it was getting that data from and what the numbers were, then I think it would have appeared very, very quickly that it was citing incorrectly, or it wouldn't have hallucinated at all, right? Because it had access to the true data. So I think it's very, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that like citation of facts needs to become like more widespread in the use of AI. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on actor-critic models? I guess it's a throwback to more just like straight reinforcement learning, which is where your PhD was. But yeah, what are your thoughts on like that kind of stuff, those kind of approaches? Maybe we'll have to explain what actor-critic is, but yeah, what are your thoughts on those kind of approaches for handling this kind of?
I think so. Actor-critic is where you have a model that will say generate something, and you have another model which will critique it. I think it can be very, very effective for that side. I think where it gets a little bit hard with actor-critic right now is if you do ask a model to criticize, it almost needs to give like a score of like how bad the response was. Because if you ask an AI to criticize anything, it's going to find issues with it, right? It's because you're giving it a task and its job is to achieve that task. So it's always going to find issues. Getting a gauge on whether those issues are like major issues in the reasoning or are they small issues, I think is probably the important part there. But yeah, it'd be quite interesting to see if someone actually developed like a AI model that had transparent actor-critic. I think it'd be quite cool. Like each response had a response and then a contradiction. It would be quite confusing to use, but it would be an interesting experiment, like a R&D experiment to do.
Yeah, within a business, I guess, even pre-AI, there's workflows where people do something and then it needs sign off from someone else or like a final step of approval. Like in coding, we have like code review and testing and everything, and then someone actually like kind of rubber stamps it and is like, yeah, we're good to go. What are your thoughts on some of these current issues with AI? Can we address them with some of those kind of more traditional kind of setups, even if we're getting AI in one part of it?
Yeah, I think the best example of that, which is working quite well, is AI writing code and then AI code reviewing it. And I think the original kind of implementations of that were a little bit shaky. Like the comments from the reviewer were like, so-so. But what I've seen recently is like the AI comments have been very, very good. They've picked up things that a lot of people wouldn't pick up, and they've picked up kind of minute things that might have big impact. So I think that's a fantastic example of where that same sort of dynamic plays out. I think that the blind spot is in that case though, which is a huge blind spot, is that both the agent writing the code and the agent reviewing the code might miss some of the same context, right? So say both of those models are writing and they're writing code for a financial services company. They might, like both the one writing the code and the one reviewing might actually not know that they're working on stuff for a financial services company. So both of those models will totally miss the fact that there's certain compliance that needs to be applied or there's certain risks that need to be applied. Those models may have been trained on building simple tools or something like simple web pages. So I think the danger there and like fully letting that thing run is that both your actor and your critic have the same blind spots. Which is where, like, for everything we do at Lumen, we human review it as well, so that we've got like, AI writing the code, we've got AI reviewing the code to pick up everything that the AI can pick up, and then we've got human reviewing to pick up the blind spots that the two agents might have. It is time consuming, it is expensive, but I think for the time being, it's necessary.
I mean, we've talked. This is like an episode about AI transformation, right? And a lot of this is very important for like companies or just like people, like if anyone, because this applies at kind of all scales, right? Not all problems will be applicable to everyone. But like all we've talked about today has been very like how, like, what's the best way of saying this? It's been all about your kind of like mindset and like your attitude towards AI, and like how the things you need to think about and the things that like we think about when like as like dealing with these systems every day. And actually, I just wanted to before we move on to some other stuff, there's like what I've noticed, like a little bit from the outside of like not being upper management or anything. Like I've been thinking about this a little bit recently, how we've like transitioned our tooling and the way we kind of like work over the last few months has almost all been like driving context and context sharing. Like I think that's like my main takeaway from like the last few months and how like our tools have changed and how like the things we do changes. Like it's all been like the whole like agent enablement and AI transformation side has all been like just managing context. Like Max was saying, right? It's like switching from Jira to Linear, which is like agent first, AI first, like all the way, and like to GitHub and all these things. That's been like really, really interesting. Like the main theme has just been context everywhere. And now that everything is like has context, it's really interesting. It's really cool the kind of like workflows that can be built and like how people are using it, whether it's like cross department, like sales asking Linear about like what's happening in development, or like people just being able to like share feedback immediately like into Linear, and then that getting like dropped onto the queue and then getting like handled like same day and that kind of stuff. You guys want to talk a little bit more about that just quickly?
Yeah.
Like about what the thought process was, especially behind switching tools, and what the process was like of like picking new tools.
Yeah, I'll jump on a wee bit. I think Max can talk more about the actual tools, but on your point on context, yeah, I fully agree. Even to the point of context of the person. So we did change a lot of tools to ones that would plug into AI tooling better. We had to get rid of ones that had walled gardens around them, but we made that change. And then on the topic of context, yeah, we've plugged stuff in, but some parts, maybe like some parts where we've seen very advanced AI adoption where people have like really got it going and are very, very effective with their job. That in that job function, it was led by someone in the job function. So for example, a lot of our product owners have become very, very proficient, but the workflows for them weren't made by like a third person who was like the AI enablement person. It was done internally by people in the actual job function. And I think that's very important because like we were talking about before, like AI is maybe better at things I'm good at, but I'm still bad at things I'm bad at even with AI. So on the point of context, I think it extends all the way to like who's setting up the AI workflows or getting it to work well in the job function. At the moment, I still think it's very important that it's someone from within that job function who can champion it themselves, because they themselves have the context on what does good look like. Well, we can change some process, but like I know what good looks like and can push back and really get that thing working very, very well. Yeah, so I agree, and I think it extends all the way to the person using it. Yeah, what are your thoughts, Max, on that one?
Yeah, I think what you said, Eustace, around the major tooling changes and the major transformations we had to do at Lumen were all about context, is exactly right. I think that's very, very interesting, quite profound. Like we realized at the start of the year that the AI tools themselves were fantastic. The AI agents could be very, very helpful across many pieces of the business. But because the tools weren't connecting to each other, and if we wanted to use, for example, Claude Code, it couldn't actually connect to our code bases in Bitbucket. And both tools become useless, right? Both Bitbucket and Claude Code become useless because they can't interact. And so, like you said, the main part of the transformation was making sure that all the tools can actually pull the data out of the relevant places to do their job. And I think that's effectively what we did, right? We got rid of those walled gardens. We dropped tools where they wouldn't connect to the AI agents we wanted them to connect to. And then we made sure that the tools had the context. So that's probably the first piece on the tooling. And then the second piece got exactly what you said. The getting the people who already are doing those jobs and know what good look like to actually implement the changes has been the most effective thing that we have done, because otherwise, if it comes from somewhere else, the person doesn't know what good looks like, and the person doesn't know all about what are the small issues that might arise. So driving that at a department level has been super helpful, and that's where we've seen the most success.
And like, I really like what you were saying, Scott, from like the context of the person. I think giving everyone access to like whatever models and like assistants they want has also been really good for that. Like everyone can have Cursor, Claude, ChatGPT, Codex, Gemini, whatever they want, like whenever they want, how much they want. And that's like really cool because like a lot of these tools have gotten to the point, right, where you customize your setup and it's actually like a switching pain now. Like for me, when I run out of usage on something, it's like I actually almost just like stop working until the like the usage like resets in that thing, because it's more like it's such a pain to like reproduce like all the like setup that I've done, right? Because these things have gotten so good at just like growing with you and implementing kind of like the feedback that you give them, right? Like Claude, you'll have your connectors and like your MCPs and your tools, and so like if you'll have your like as an engineer you're like linear and maybe Sentry and Posthog and all these other connectors, and it's like very tailored to you, right? And then like your personal like skills and like your AgentsMD stuff that it like remembers the memory. That's been like really cool, and of course other people have that, and that hasn't been like that for a while. So how did you guys really drive adoption across Lumen on some of these tools, right? Because comparing now to a year ago, like there's I don't know what the actual percentage or like multiplier is, but there's so much like more work being done because of like AI, but like just output, but also so many more people now that like use Claude actively and like try these things, and like the amount of people that are also non-technical that now use like Claude Code or Cursor or something has like grown so much. How did you guys manage that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So maybe like even stepping back is we went into this AI transformation, and a lot of it was about making sure Lumen was the best place for people to work. We do see a future with a lot of AI, and also 6 to 8 months, like on the job market, I would expect like a lot of roles to be expecting people to have experience with AI. That's problematic if you're a student, because you got to pay for tokens, and that's expensive, and we're racking up a token bill. That's fine. We pay for everyone's tokens.
What's our token bill currently on like
Oh,
across?
is
like,
that confidential?
It's over $1 million a year. Yeah.
Yeah. Since we're talking about cost, I get this question a lot from engineering companies. It's like, oh man, how do you afford to pay for your tokens? We're very fortunate that Lumen has, we get a lot of revenue from self-serve, and we have people writing A/B tests to increase revenue. So by writing more A/B tests, we increase revenue and pay for all our tokens. I appreciate it's not the same for every company or even every engineering company, but for anyone else out there that's running like a PLG motion, that's like a pretty easy justification to make to your boss so they don't come and switch off your tokens, which a lot of people are worried about at the moment. But yeah, so we set out to make Lumen the best place to work, because like we want everyone to get good with AI, everyone to have the opportunity to do it and upskill themselves, which will like make themselves way more valuable in the job market, which is totally cool. So, and the other one was like Max was saying, we flipped from a lot of companies that weren't plugging into tools and using them to ones that were, and that's like the direction Lumen wants to go. So it's like very AI first. But the actual barrier we had was like context. Like I think you were saying before, like, and Max was saying before, AI wasn't working very well in Lumen because it wasn't connected to stuff. Even the software repositories, we had a lot, and it was hard to get a model on all of them. So that meant that when people used AI for coding, it didn't really work, which leads to the conclusion of like AI doesn't work. But it was more a case of AI doesn't work at Lumen yet. And so we run the transformation. But yeah, I'm also keen to hear your thoughts, Max. About this whole thing, because it is like a super, before we did it, it was like the biggest challenge, right? It's like the stuff, it sounds not like a challenge, but it's actually a massive challenge.
Yeah, definitely. I'll take a bit of a different approach to that, and just even the token budget. I think I always look for things kind of running a business in the market where there's some sort of transformational change going on, which will continue to happen for a fair amount of years, but it's like so drastic and so impactful that it'll change the entire market, right? So early days in Lumen, that was just the shift from kind of like storing files on desktops to storing files in the cloud. And there was a certain point, probably around like 2014, where it became clear that all files would eventually end up in the cloud, or like the vast majority of files would end up in the cloud. And so for Lumen, our strategy was let's build tools, let's build PDF editors and signing tools that work really well on the cloud. Because as that transition happens, we're going to be there to capture that market share as it increases, right? I think the same is happening in the AI world. So we're seeing a lot of work and a lot of processing being shifted over to AI agents. And just like cloud storage got cheaper kind of in the 2010s and compute got cheaper in the 90s, I believe that AI will get cheaper as well. I'll go into that in a little bit more, why I believe it'll get a lot cheaper. But I think it'll get a lot cheaper, which means it'll get used a lot more, which means for us, we need to make sure that all our employees can use the tools, can understand the tools, and those tools are going to get more and more powerful, which will make them more valuable and hopefully give them more job satisfaction. So I think we're kind of going through that big change right now with AI, right? And that means that we want to be in that space. We want to be building products in that space, but we want to have people that are trained up to kind of take advantage of what's happening.
So do you want to talk a bit more about why you think token prices are going to go down? Because I've got something, I've got my own thoughts on that as well, but I really want to hear, what you think.
Yeah, definitely. I think the really interesting thing about AI is it's been developing for, say, about 10 years, right? Since the start of deep learning, 2014 to 2016, where it really started getting going. And the initial way that AI was built was just to run on GPUs, and it was almost a hack. Like it was some very, very clever people figured out how they could take neural networks and they could run them on GPUs that at the time were just built for gaming. And GPUs were never specifically built for deep learning. They were just these things that were there for like rendering graphics, and people figured out how to get AI models working on them. That almost stayed the same until like probably 2 or 3 years ago. The models got more and more powerful, especially as even like the crypto markets drove GPU development, so GPUs got better, the models got more and more powerful. But even today, we're still like running a large amount of AI just on these chips that were developed for graphics processing. What we do see in the market is the likes of Cerebras developing specific hardware for running AI models. Google have been doing this for quite a few years with their TPUs. And there's just so much money being poured into the specific chip development that I believe we'll see over the next 5 years or so incredible advancements in hardware specifically for running AI models. What they'll be trying to do is they develop that new hardware, they'll be trying to get faster tokens per second, better energy efficiency, and run larger models. And because we haven't like been specifically developing hardware for that in the past, no one's really been optimizing for that, but they are now. So I think that's why AI is probably going to get 100 to 1,000 times cheaper than what it is right now, and like 100 to 1,000 times faster.
Yeah, I agree on the compute side. It's like there's obviously a lot of concern and like a lot of investment in like the compute prices like rising on the consumer side because it's all just like being gobbled up by data centers and stuff. I think in the long term, like people will build more computers and that'll solve that problem to some degree. Also, I think like models are already getting cheaper, like way cheaper than they were before. Maybe not if you look at the actual like tokens in, tokens out pricing. Then it looks like, oh, it's getting so much more expensive, right? Like a few years ago, they were like $1 in, 3 out or something. Now we're like up to sometimes 25 and like $150 out per million tokens. But what I always like looking at is the trend of like IQ or like intelligence task per like cost per task. And that's been like dropping really, really quickly, especially from like the frontier labs. Like it's been really cool to see, like especially OpenAI, some of those graphs are like pretty crazy where even like the amount of tokens that the models have to generate to solve a complex task like that models a couple years ago or just like 6 or 4 months ago had to use millions of tokens or hundreds of thousands of tokens to solve. These new models can do it in a fraction, right? So while the price of the models is going up, the actual like price per output, I think, is going down. And then of course that gets then gobbled up by people outputting more, right? Like with Claude Code or with Codex or something. Like, yes, it's like maybe per task has gotten cheaper, but now people are doing like 10,000 tasks a day. So I think that is like still going to improve, and like as these models get smarter, they'll just be able to do more things with less tokens, and therefore it's like kind of cheaper as well. And it's like I can definitely see how it's very like it's a big issue, right, for companies. Like there's the big story of like Uber spending like their entire AI bill in like a very short amount of time because they like rescoped, and I think that's probably also something like important to consider, right, for people, like for companies going through like a transformation and suddenly giving everyone these like token furnaces, right, like Claude Code and stuff, because they do get expensive. And it's especially like I don't actually know what happened with the Uber one. What I can see is like they were using like Copilot or Cursor or something at like a turn, and then all of a sudden they gave everyone Claude Code and were like, all right, use as much as you can, because they were still pricing it based on like the Copilot like side chat things. Right? Your employee does, an average engineer does this amount of output, but then these newer tools, they're designed to like burn as many tokens as entire products do. Like in Lumen, we have the AI like side chat, right? And any one of the like engineers at Lumen probably uses more tokens in a day than that thing like uses across all of our users in a day, just from like Claude Code and Cursor and stuff. So that's like something to consider as well.
Yeah, I agree with the on the cost, like the hardware. I hadn't actually thought about the specific hardware development before, which is like pretty cool. Because I agree. It's like everything's just been hacked onto like GPUs that were built for running Call of Duty or whatever, right? Like,
Yep.
And it's like, oh, by the way, we can like run neural nets on it. So in some ways, like the entire machine learning AI research field has to thank like computer gamers for really making this whole thing possible.
Definitely.
Which is like quite a funny thing to think about. And then Eustace, I agree, like the tokens per task thing actually being a better metric than like input output is also like bang on. I think the final piece is around like markups, and like if you only have like a couple frontier labs and they're the only ones that could build LLMs that could do the task, then like you might end up having this case where the prices get a bit out of control because they've got a monopoly or a duopoly. But the other interesting one we have is open weight models, where it's open source, people can go run it on some hardware somewhere. So like Cerebras or whoever will host different open weight models, which then drags, and as long as those models are good, it drags the price of inference down to be not pinned to inference cost, but like to track inference cost, which depends on the specific hardware people are making, which is getting better, and also the price of electricity, I guess, and data centers. And then also as these models get better, then the tokens per task is also dropping, or the cost per task is also dropping. So I think between them, I think we're all in agreement that it's kind of going down. But it's also a question, I don't know if you guys get asked that question a lot. I get asked that a lot. You like the company transformed and does a lot of coding with AI, but the tokens are subsidized at the moment because Anthropic and OpenAI are making a loss, like just loss leading the whole thing. And then are you concerned that everyone's using AI and then they're going to like ramp the prices to be 10x and then you're not going to be able to write code? And it's like, well, are they going to ramp the prices 10x? Like, I don't know. I think it's unlikely, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a good quote. I don't know if it's like Peter Steinberger or Gary Tan. So for context, the guy who made OpenClaw, or the guy who currently runs Y Combinator in San Francisco. I forget which one of them said this, but one of them was like, with $10,000 of AI spend now, and you're like 3 Claude codes and 5 codexes and whatnot, you can now experience what someone with a $50 subscription will experience in like 2 to 3 years, right? Because that's kind of the trend that's been going, and I think that's pretty fair to some degree. Like I definitely see that being the way that things go, and as like speed increases, like and the efficiency increases, and like the cost per task goes down, I can totally see that in the stuff we do today, where I burn, I don't know how many $1,000s a month just like doing the stuff. I can definitely see that in 2 years that can be done with $10 or $20 or $50 or something.
Yes, that's very exciting.
I think the really interesting thing there, like, is that a lot of the models we're getting right now are probably kind of in a way are like sledgehammers being used for like pushing in like a small nail or something like that, right? So there's a lot of like overkill. A lot of the coding I do now, I find it, even the kind of the older models or the more lightweight models are like more than sufficient. So I particularly like Cursor's Composer 2.5, which is built off the open source Kimi 2.5 model. And I find that is useful for like 90% of what I can do, what I want to do, like that'll do most of it. So I think we're getting to a point where, yes, the really, really powerful models are helpful for some stuff, but for a lot of the stuff that we're doing, the smaller models can be super useful. And those ones are getting cheaper and cheaper to run all the time. So how companies like Lumen and labs like Anthropic will figure out like how to route the right task to the right model, I think is still yet to be determined. Because there's also like a slight misalignment, right? For us, like if we're doing cost control, we probably want to route the cheaper tasks, like the easier tasks to the cheaper models. But for Anthropic, they're still very, very, it's profitable for them to route all tasks to the most expensive models. So I think there's a little bit of alignment that has to happen there. But otherwise, I don't think there's like a fundamental reason why AI will keep getting more expensive. Like there's just no reason, right? The models we have right now are good enough to do lots of different things, and the price is only going down. So I'm not really worried about the increasing cost side.
Yeah, I agree. And something I actually like about some of those other models is they're just faster inference. Like sometimes like frontier models are great. I actually just default to the latest Opus, but man, sometimes it takes so long to get something done, and a smaller model will get you there. Like also more cost efficient, but it'll get you there. I think it's still the case as well. Like using the Anthropic models outside of American business hours is so much better than like during American business hours. It seems like we've got this time zone down here, like maybe the best time zone in the world to be using AI from, where the models just seem to run so much faster during our working day than if you hear a bit late, like 8 p.m. or something, then America wakes up and it's like, man, why is Claude so slow? And it's like, okay, it's like American time zone. But I don't know, that's a plug for New Zealand to being the best place in the world to work on AI.
As long as the models are available in New Zealand.
Yeah. We have everything, don't we? Is there anything that's not available in New Zealand?
Oh no, I'm like talking about Fable being banned.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah.
if you like it's great. Like yeah, we are off peak for most of the day, right? And you can feel it, but who knows what's going to happen? Like if the next generation is like even going to be released outside of America or whatever.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm kind of out of questions. Do you guys have any questions you want to run, or
No, I think this has been pretty good. It's gone a bit more technical than we were kind of like aiming for, but that's fine. We're all like technical, so that's like I guess that's kind of how it's always going to be. But yeah, this is kind of the worst it's ever going to be as well. So it's only going to get better from now, and we can adjust kind of what we talk about in future episodes. I think we've got a few like cliffhangers and things that we can like talk about next time, like building out Wyatt and like AI safety and security. I think that's like a great thing to talk about. We've got to keep doing this.
Cool.
Just
yeah, we can. Yeah, I agree. It's like the worst it'll ever be, and also the hardest it'll ever be, because it's like the cruel thing about doing something new. We can tease some up to try, maybe get some guardrails to be a bit less technical. On the other topics, I know one person that would love to come in and talk about AI and accountability, who'd absolutely love to talk about it. And I know someone that would probably be pretty keen to come in and talk about smaller models. There's like another two.
we'll be pulling in many people, kind of try. I mean, as long as the thing keeps going, I'm pretty keen to pull in other people from Lumen and also externally, some of the Christchurch and New Zealand tech scene, and yeah. Be pretty exciting. I think we're going to have some good episodes teed up in the future.
Yeah, it was a big AI transformation episode, and we got a bit sidetracked into, some things like, will AI get more expensive and a little bit of coding stuff? But I think there's some pretty good stuff in there for AI transformation and like how Lumen did it, which is hopefully helpful to anyone else who's, thinking about going through this themselves, which, is from the outset, it does seem quite scary and, imposing, but yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Hope you enjoy.